In 1302, a man was sentenced to death, not for murder, not for treason in the conventional sense, for being on the wrong side of a political argument in Florence. His name was Dante Alighieri, and instead of dying, he did something far more dangerous. He wrote a poem, not a love poem, not a lament. A poem that claimed to be a literal eyewitness account of the afterlife. Every circle of hell, every ledge of purgatory, every sphere of paradise, mapped with the precision of an architect, and the fury of a man who had lost everything. And inside that map, hidden in plain sight behind the theology and the philosophy and the breathtaking beauty of the verse, he did something that no one had ever dared to do before. He condemned his enemies to hell by name. Popes, princes, political rivals, people who were still alive when he wrote it. He didn't just describe hell, he populated it. He chose who burned and who didn't. He gave himself the power that only God was supposed to have. And the world called it a masterpiece. Today, we go inside the most ambitious act of revenge ever committed with a pen. Inside the mind of a medieval poet who turned exile into eternity. And inside the 9 circles of a hell that was never just about the afterlife. It was always about Florence. Dante Alighieri was born in Florence in 1265 into a family of minor nobility. Florence in the 13th century was not a peaceful city. It was a war zone dressed as a republic. 2 factions, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, tearing each other apart over whether the Pope or the Holy Roman Emperor should hold ultimate power over Italy. Dante was a Guelph. When the Guelphs finally won control of Florence, he rose through the city's political ranks. By 1300, he was one of 6 priors, the highest governing body in the city. Then the Guelphs split in 2. The white Guelphs, Dante's faction, wanted Florentine independence from papal interference. The black Guelphs wanted closer ties with Rome. In 1301, the black Guelphs seized power with the help of Pope Boniface VIII. Dante was in Rome on a diplomatic mission when it happened. He never went back. In January 1302, he was charged with corruption, fined, and permanently exiled from Florence. 2 months later, the sentence was revised. If he ever returned to Florence, he would be burned alive. He was 36 years old. He had a wife and children in Florence. He would never see them again, and he had the rest of his life to write. The Divine Comedy was not written quickly. Dante worked on it for the last 20 years of his life, in exile, moving from court to court across northern Italy, dependent on the charity of rulers who recognized his genius even as his own city had condemned him to death. The Inferno, the first and most famous of the 3 parts, begins on the night of Good Friday, 1300. Dante finds himself lost in a dark forest. He is met by the shade of the Roman poet Virgil, who has been sent to guide him. And together they descend. 9 circles, each one for a different category of sin. Each one more terrible than the last. Circle 1, limbo, for the virtuous pagans who died before Christ. Circle 2, the lustful, blown forever by an unending storm. Circle 3, the gluttonous, lying in filth under eternal rain. Circle 4, the greedy and the wasteful, pushing weights against each other for eternity. Circle 5, the wrathful, fighting in the mud of the river Styx. Circle 6, the heretics, burning in open tombs. Circle 7, the violent, divided into 3 rings. Circle 8, the fraudulent, the largest and most elaborately described circle. Circle 9, the traitors, frozen in a lake of ice at the center of the earth. And at the very bottom, at the absolute center of creation, frozen to his waist in ice, with 3 heads and 3 mouths each chewing on a sinner, Lucifer. The same being we explored in the last video. The most beautiful creature ever made, now the most degraded, the furthest possible point from God. Dante understood the symmetry. The creature who had wanted to be at the top was placed by his own gravity at the very bottom. But here is where the poem becomes something more than theology. Because Dante didn't fill his hell with abstract sinners, he filled it with specific people. And some of them were very much alive when he wrote it. Pope Boniface VIII, the man most directly responsible for Dante's exile, appears in the Inferno not once, but twice. The first time, a damned soul mistakes Dante for Boniface, assuming he has already arrived. The implication is clear. The Pope isn't dead yet, but his place in hell is already reserved and waiting. Dante put a living Pope in hell. Think about what that meant in 1300. The Pope was the representative of God on earth. To suggest that a reigning pontiff was hellbound was not just scandalous, it was potentially suicidal. Dante was already exiled. He could have been excommunicated. He could have been hunted. He did it anyway. Boniface is placed in the 8th circle among the Simonists, those who bought and sold church offices. He is buried headfirst in a hole in the rock, his feet sticking up and burning, unable to speak until another pope arrives to push him deeper. It is one of the most savage acts of literary revenge in human history. But Boniface is not alone. Pope Nicholas III is already in that hole when Dante arrives and mistakes him for Boniface. Pope Clement V, who moved the papacy from Rome to Avignon, is condemned before he has even died. Dante was not writing about sin in the abstract. He was settling scores with the precision and patience of a man who had 20 years of exile to plan his revenge, and the genius to make it immortal. The political code hidden in the Inferno goes even deeper than the popes. Florence itself is everywhere. The city is practically a character, corrupt, beautiful, self-destructive, beloved. Dante attacks it relentlessly throughout the poem, condemning Florentines by name to every level of hell, while simultaneously making clear that his love for the city is the wound that will never heal. His guides through the afterlife are themselves a political statement. Virgil, the poet of Rome, leads him through hell and purgatory. Beatrice, his idealized love, a Florentine woman who died young, leads him through paradise. The message: Rome and Florence. Classical wisdom and personal devotion. These are the twin pillars of Dante's universe, not the papacy, not the political structures that destroyed him. And in the highest sphere of paradise, who does Dante encounter? Not the Pope, not the Emperor. He encounters Bernard of Clairvaux, a mystic who had argued for a direct personal relationship with God, without institutional mediation. For a man whose life had been destroyed by institutional religion, this was not an accident. But perhaps the most radical thing Dante did was give himself the power of divine judgment. In the medieval Christian worldview, only God decided who went to heaven and who went to hell. To presume to know those destinies, to claim that knowledge, was the height of arrogance. Dante claimed it anyway. He placed in hell people he personally disliked. He placed in paradise people he admired. He encountered figures in purgatory who asked him to pray for them, treating a living man as if he had intercessory power. He made himself, in the architecture of the poem, something dangerously close to a prophet. Not a saint, not a theologian, a poet. A condemned, exiled, half-broken poet who had lost his city, his home, his family, and his future, and who responded by creating a universe in which he was the one who got to decide. There is something Luciferan about it if you look at it from a certain angle. The refusal to accept the hierarchy is given, the insistence that his own judgment was as valid as God's, the willingness to burn everything down, in this case the reputations of popes and princes, rather than submit to a power he considered corrupt and illegitimate. Dante didn't rebel with weapons, he rebelled with verse, and 500 years later we still call it the greatest poem ever written. The Inferno has never stopped being relevant because hell has never stopped being a political document. Every era reads it differently. Every era finds its own villains in the circles. Every era recognizes in Dante's Florence its factionalism, its corruption, its beautiful destructive ambition, the city it lives in now. The dark forest at the beginning of the poem, nel mezzo dei cammin di nostra vita, in the middle of the journey of our life, is not just Dante's crisis, it is every crisis. Every moment when the path disappears and the only way forward is to go down before you can go up. Virgil says to him when Dante hesitates at the gate of hell, "You must go this way. There is no other road. There is no other road." Dante went in. He saw everything, he named everyone, and he came out the other side with a poem that has outlasted every pope he condemned, every prince who sheltered him, every political faction that tore Florence apart. The man who was sentenced to death for being on the wrong side of an argument about power left behind the most enduring argument about power ever made. He was right about everything, including himself. If you've never read the Inferno, read it. If you've read it, read it again with this in mind. And if you want to keep going deeper into the artists, the exiles, the condemned, and the visionaries who hid the truth inside the most beautiful things ever made, subscribe. We are nowhere near the bottom of this yet.